Good morning. This is Northern Light for Friday, September 1st. I'm Monica Sandreski.
I'm Todd Moe.
A change in COVID protocol starting today. Face masks are required again at all facilities run by Samaritan Health.
Also following our story about Bigfoot, the largest eastern white pine recorded in the southern Adirondacks, we head to a historic stand of eastern white pines in Paul Smith's called the Elder Grove.
White pine is an inherently giant tree. They'll get 20, 30, 40 feet taller than any other species that we grow on the same site.
John Warren checks trail conditions in the Adirondacks Forest this weekend, and you're invited to check out the turn-of-the-century print shop at the St. Lawrence Power and Equipment Museum during their annual old-fashioned harvest days.
Back then, no TV, no radio, maybe for a lot of people, no telephone, and so a local newspaper that is where you knew what happened in the community and the world, and they were important.
All of that and more is coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us.
Broadcast of Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio is supported by the Depot Theatre, Westport, a professional equity theatre in the Adirondacks celebrating its 45th season, depottheatre.org. And by the Adirondack Foundation and the Adirondack Birth to Three Alliance, dedicated to providing all children the best possible start in life, adirondackbt3.org.
This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. Starting today, face masks are required again at all facilities run by Samaritan Health based in Watertown. A Samaritan spokesperson told WWNY-TV the mask mandate is being reinstated because of the recent increase in COVID-19 cases. 2 weeks ago, the last week for which CDC data is available, there were 17 COVID-19 related hospital admissions in Jefferson County, more than twice as many as the previous week. Masks are now required for all patients, staff members, and visitors at Samaritan's clinics, hospitals, and nursing homes.
Kinney Drugs is the first drugstore in the country to sell the overdose reversal nasal spray Narcan over the counter. Back in March, the FDA approved drug manufacturer Emergent Biosolutions to produce the drug for over-the-counter sale. The U.S. set a record for the number of overdose fatalities in 2022. Judy Cowden is with Kinney Drugs. She says the store's location in Clayton made the first nationwide sale Wednesday morning.
Kinney Drugs worked very hard with Emergent Biosolutions to expedite delivery of the product into our distribution center so we could provide overnight delivery of the product to our stores.
According to a press release, any person of any age is allowed to buy Narcan without having a prescription or presenting an ID. It costs about $45 for 2 doses. CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, and other pharmacies and grocery stores will also start carrying Narcan within the next few weeks.
Last week, we reported on the largest white pine in the world on its way to being documented in the southern Adirondacks. It's called Bigfoot, and it was found in a 550-acre old white pine stand. Bigfoot is an hours-long bushwhack through dense woods, so reporter Amy Feiereisel couldn't get there, but she did take a trip to another historic stand of eastern white pines in Paul Smith's. It's called the Elder Grove. Here's her story.
To get to the Elder Grove, it's about a mile's walk from Route 86 on an old logging road that turns into a winding, unmarked footpath. While the way is locally well known, I'm glad to have guides from the forestry department at Paul Smith's College. Professors Randall Swanson.
My specialty is arboriculture and urban forestry, but I sure have an interest in old trees.
And Justin Waskowitz.
I'm a professor at Paul Smith's College. I teach several classes in the forestry department.
Waskowitz takes students out here each year. He leads the way through meadows, mud, and under a power line. On our way in, Waskowitz stops at a large eastern white pine that is not part of the Elder Grove.
For a second, so this is a white pine. And it's obviously, a very big tree. It's 3.5 feet in diameter. It's probably 120 feet tall. But it's fundamentally different than the ones we're going to see later.
He points out the many dead branches sticking out of the trunk.
First live branches are only up maybe 30 feet. And it's enormous, but it's probably only 120 years old.
Where we're going, the white pines are more than twice that, about 350 years old. And Waskowitz says they'll look different. We walk over a gentle rise and the forest changes. We've reached the elder grove.
Bringing us to the edge of the grove. And the trees in here were tagged and numbered. And I've got a little kind of hand-drawn map that somebody gave me.
We head towards tree number 101. Oh my goodness, it's huge. We're standing in front of a straight white pine that's reaching up towards the sky. It's a similar width to the youngster we just saw, but taller. And Randall Swanson points out that the trunk is smooth.
We're going up at least 80 feet before we see a branch.
The first branches are so high up, the crown of the tree looks small.
From the ground, that doesn't look like a huge crown, but that has to generate all the food to support all the rest of the living tissue in this tree.
There are about 50 of these ancient eastern white pines here in an 8-acre area. They're estimated to have germinated around 1665 after some big event, a fire or a windstorm, cleared the area. Eastern white pines love sunlight, says Waskowitz.
White pine is an inherently giant tree. They'll get 20, 30, 40 feet taller than any other species that we grow on the same site.
They have been and are a prized wood.
Very lightweight yet strong wood. It's soft, it's easy to carve, it's just good for a lot of things.
That's why this stand is special. Somehow it escaped centuries of logging in the Adirondacks.
Occasionally you find a tree that looks particularly impressive, but to find 50 or so in an area...
That's rare. Swanson says they probably survived because the stand is in a lower, wetter area, which would have been trickier to log.
Which is really stunning to think that they've been here longer than the country and
think
all the
of
things.
Like, imagine standing in the same place for 350 years. Imagine all the storms you would have to sit through, all the lightning strikes overhead, how scared you'd be sometime.
Many of the trees have lightning strike scars on their trunks. The bark looks almost like plated armor, and it's a weathered gray color. Waskowitz points out the upper branches.
I call them bodybuilder arms because they're all twisted at weird right angles and stuff because they've been snapped and then re-sprouted off the side or whatever. They've got this character to them that reflects 350 years of the slings and arrows that tree life throws at you.
But in another 50 years, these pines will probably all be gone. They're starting to come down from sheer height, rot, and age. Swanson calls this the mortality spiral.
Where it's a combination of factors that finally weaken a tree or bring it to a point where it's a tipping point where it can't come back from it.
Waskowitz says the mortality spiral is true for whole stands. One goes, and then there's less cover, and then another falls, and another.
We're kind of here with this stand. It's not going to be here in 50 years.
There are already several trunks on the ground, and you can see where they crashed through the understory. We look at one behemoth trunk that Waskowitz says fell a few years ago.
You see the spruce on the left has been knocked forever, the rest of its life, askew.
Yeah.
And then this maple here is bent over in a U. It's still pinned underneath the log.
He says that tree will take hundreds of years to fully decompose.
But in the meantime,
things are growing out.
We've got little seedlings germinating on it. We've got all this moss. We've got mushrooms. And then, the cracks and crevices provide all kinds of, nice places for small animals to live.
In the coming decades, Swanson says more of the pines will fall, one after another, until they're all down.
It's sad for us to see these giants fall, but from a forest ecology standpoint, they're playing as much of a role laying on the forest floor as they were standing. It's just in a different way now, and so many things are going to utilize that fallen tree.
Absolutely.
As the pines come down, the shade-tolerant trees currently in the understory will take over. Sugar maple, beech, and yellow birch. It will become a different forest. So it's a gift, in this moment, to witness the way it is now. Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio in the Elder Grove.
You can find pictures of the Elder Grove online at ncpr.org. You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It's 9 minutes past 8. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Coming up, John Warren checks trail conditions for us in the Adirondacks on this first weekend in September. It's coming up in just a few minutes here on Northern Light.
This is Colton guitarist Paul Myers. Check his music out on our website anytime, part of the Underscore Project, ncpr.org/underscore. And Paul Myers will also be performing with the Paul Winter Consort, performing This Glorious Earth at Weatherwatch Farm in Saranac on Monday, Labor Day, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you want more information about that concert, featuring the Paul Winter Consort, This Glorious Earth, you can check out their website at hillandhollowmusic.org. Northern Light is supported by NCC Systems, protecting North Country businesses and homes for 50 years, offering cameras, security, fire alarms, and entry control. NCCsystems.com.
In 1968, Robert G. Wheely, a member of the family that owned the Genesee Brewery in Rochester, bought a parcel of land from the United States Army and had been used as a gunning range, but it sported sweeping views of eastern Lake Ontario near Watertown. Wheely turned the property into his kennel for breeding English pointers. He also made sculptures of the dogs. Wheely donated the property to New York in 1990 for the creation of a state park. And today, Wheely's dog sculptures greet hikers who come to enjoy 14 miles of trail, some of them hugging cliffs along the lakeshore. There's even a dog run, too. So if you're looking to get outdoors this holiday weekend, Wheely is a great choice. David Summerstein and his family sent an audio postcard from there in 2018.
It's gorgeous Sunday afternoon. We're walking just through grass, basically. Mowed grass, even. In Robert G. Wheely State Park. We're headed to Lake Ontario.
It's just nice. No bugs. Very fresh. I really, really, really like it.
I'm here with Lisa Lazenby and Olivia Summerstein.
Hi.
What are you excited about?
Nothing.
As you can hear from the flip-flops, this is not a hard hike. This can barely even be called a hike. It's just a cute little chorus of birds as we actually go into, like a little forested area.
Down to the water.
Oh, I can see the water now.
So we're here at the edge of Lake Ontario.
It's straight down to the bottom.
A huge cliff, like probably, 30, 40, 50 feet down, with big shards of rock down at the bottom from having shorn off from the cliff. You can hear that surf, and man, we're looking out on Lake Ontario. You can see Wolf Island in the distance. It is just flat, sparkling, and beautiful. We're in this meadow now filled with these beautiful purple, very desert-looking flowers. Thistle, some kind of thistle. This is the clearing where the house of Mr. Robert G. Wheely is, and it's now like a guest house. He was a sculptor, and he bred English pointers, dogs, and had a dog kennel here. And even as we speak right now, I see a hiker with a dog on a leash. This whole place is kind of like a tribute to dogs, our four-legged friends.
I'm sitting on rocks at the lake.
After a pretty long walk, more than a mile, made it down to the shore of Lake Ontario.
It feels like there could be sea lions laying on the rocks next to us. It's like, doesn't feel like Lake Ontario. It feels like the ocean in southern Greece or something. I don't know. It's pretty rad.
The water is like very like emerald green here. The rocks hang out over the lake, and so the water crashes up underneath them, and that's that sound that you hear. Sun right in front of us. Delightful summer place to be. I'm David Summerstein. Go on.
You
Say,
can tell everybody what at the end.
No, I know. Say, Olivia, I'm Olivia Summerstein.
I'm Olivia Summerstein.
I'm Lisa Lazenby.
And I'm David Summerstein. Robert G. Wheely State Park on the shores of eastern Lake Ontario.
This story first aired in 2018. One warning, while the trail does descend quite close to the lake at some points, at others it goes along high cliffs. State park rangers urge people not to climb down the cliffs or jump off the cliffs into the water.
The remains of a Vermont World War II soldier who died as a prisoner of war in the Philippines in 1942 were laid to rest this week at Arlington National Cemetery. According to the U.S. Department of Defense, Army Private First Class Arthur Barrett of Swanton, Vermont, was a member of the 31st Infantry Regiment when Japanese forces invaded the Philippine Islands in 1941. The Defense POW MIA accounting agency says he was among thousands of U.S. and Filipino service members captured and held at prisoner of war camps. More than 2,500 prisoners died at the camp during the war.
And a Lake George amusement park plans to open a new roller coaster next spring. Six Flags Great Escape will unveil the Bobcat, the first new wooden roller coaster introduced in New York State since 1999, and the first new coaster to be constructed at Six Flags Great Escape in 20 years. The Bobcat will replace the Alpine bobsled, which retires on Monday, Labor Day. Pending Town of Queensbury approval, the Bobcat will open in the spring of 2024, just in time for the park's 70th anniversary celebration.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Coming up, John Warren checks trail conditions for us in the Adirondacks this weekend. And we've got a couple of happenings going on throughout the region for your Labor Day. Then stick around after the show for Bird Note coming up at 8:42. But first, Todd has a look at the weather for us.
Hot weather fans, next week, you're going to love it. We're going to see highs near 90 by the middle of next week. Highs in the 70s this weekend, maybe a high in the low 80s on Sunday. But then we're going to turn up the heat starting Monday. Highs mid-80s, Monday and Tuesday, a high near 90 next Wednesday with sunshine pretty much right through the weekend. Partly cloudy tomorrow, but otherwise sunshine today. Mostly sunny Sunday, and the extended forecast calls for sunshine through Wednesday of next week. Hot weather, highs 80s, near 90 by Wednesday. Right now in Canton, 54 degrees with sunshine. And here's John Warren with a check of outdoor conditions for this Labor Day weekend.
It's shaping up to be a beautiful weekend, weather-wise. Expect to encounter crowds at the most popular areas. Arrive early, be prepared with alternatives, and seek out lesser visited places around the Adirondacks. Sunrise will be at about 6:15 and sunset at about 7:30. Expect to encounter muddy trails. It's been a wet summer. Summer temperatures will be mostly in the 60s this weekend, although Saturday will be breezy with wind chills in the mid-40s. Water levels remain above normal for this time of year, but stream crossings shouldn't be much of a problem this weekend. The Hudson River is forecast to be at about 3.5 feet at the gauge in North Creek. The Racket River is expected to be at about 6.5 feet at the gauge in Piercefield. Lake Champlain remains pretty high for this time of year, about 98 feet on the gauge above Whitehall. Water temperatures will remain around 70 degrees, though a few higher elevation waters have fallen into the upper 60s. Mirror Lake is about 70 degrees, as is most of Lake George and Lake Champlain. Access to Chimney Mountain remains closed to the general public. Map reading skills and rugged bushwhack are required there. Most climbing routes have reopened, however, with the exception of all routes on the Neanderthal Wall and a few routes on the main wall at Shelving Rock, and all routes on Potash Mountain, which remain closed. And the Town of Keene Hiker Shuttle will be running this weekend, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., between the Marcy Field parking area and the Garden Trailhead, with access to the Great Range, Mount Marcy, Big Slide, the Brothers, and more. The cost is $10. With the crowds this weekend, you'll want to utilize the shuttle if you can. Those are the outdoor conditions in the Adirondacks for this weekend. For North Country Public Radio, this is John Warren from the New York Almanac. Online at NewYorkAlmanac.com.
You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. It's about 20 after 8. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski here with Todd Moe. And what's old is new at the latest addition to the St. Lawrence Power and Equipment Museum in Madrid. You're invited to check out the print shop at the museum this weekend during the annual Old-Fashioned Harvest Days. Our Todd Moe stopped by this week to check it out and talk to two guys with a passion for ink, paper, metal type, and vintage printing presses.
My name is Ted Ritzko, and I've been involved in the print shop here at the museum, not from the very beginning, but almost. I've gotten attached to this place and the vision we have for it, and I can't wait till we get the thing up and running the way we want.
This weekend, you're telling folks, stop by the Power and Equipment Museum here and the print shop and take a look at this equipment. This that's a lot of it is still usable and in working condition.
That's right. And in fact, Bob, my partner, was a newspaper man all his life. And just the amount of work it took to put out a newspaper, from copy editors and linotype operators, of course, reporters, and then pressmen, it'd be very exciting to recreate that and get a feeling for what it was like, not that long ago, 50 years ago,
My name is Bob O'Mara. I've been in the printing business ever since I was 13 years old, graduating from OFA, and went to work at the Augsburg Journal right in our hometown here. And I've been in the newspaper and at all levels, from starting right in the stereotype department at the Journal to administration at the Watertown Times when I retired in 2000. And so here we are today. It's been now, 5 or 6 years since we started?
I think it's been longer, actually.
Yeah. We've been working on it ever since. And there was some of this equipment that some of the local print shops wanted to donate, and I looked at some of that, and I said, "We'll take it. We'll take it. We'll put this thing all together, and we're probably got another year before this thing really looks the way it should be and operational." So,
but it's 2023.
Yes, it is.
We live in a digital age.
Well, the thing is, this is a museum that is trying to preserve, let's say, farming and industrial things, engines, old tractors. And I was just reading, I found online the Madrid Herald. It was published from 1903 to 1918. And they have all these issues online, and I'm looking at the stories. And they have some national stories. There was in 1903, the Japanese sunk a Russian battleship with a mine, so Japan war. Mm-hmm. They have a few other things, and then they have a lot of local ads, and they have, so-and-so's cousin from Syracuse visited, and price of pork, something like that.
Right.
But back then, no TV, no radio, maybe for a lot of people, no telephone, and so a local newspaper that is where you knew what happened in the community and the world, and they were important. So anyway, it'd be a lot of fun to see what it's like to do that.
You can visit Ted and Bob at the Village Print Shop, the latest addition to the St. Lawrence Power and Equipment Museum in Madrid, this weekend during the annual Old-Fashioned Harvest Days. Hours are 9 to 5 tomorrow and Sunday.
Get ready to come together and jam this Sunday. Saranac Lake is hosting the Northern Current Music Festival. Maybe you knew about Hobo Fest, as it was called, when those organizers of that festival, Peter Seward and Jeff Kuchar, retired a few years ago. They asked the town to step up and create a new event. That's when Northern Current came together. Dan King has helped out with both, and I caught up with him for a preview of the weekend. Northern Current, he says, is a special festival to him. It has real community spirit and just good vibes. Last year, it was dreary all day, and he says it still didn't kill the buzz.
The rain held off for most of the day, and then when the final act came on and the rain came down, that's when everybody got out from under the tent and started dancing in the rain. That was so wonderful. It seems that we have a high percentage of bands with brass sections in them this year. So I know that's going to lead to a lot of funky music. Kaleta and Super Yamba Band, I'm really looking forward to. Kaleta played with Fela Kuti. And a lot of NCPR fans who listen to the Beat Authority know Fela Kuti is one of our real staple heroes. And so to bring in legendary performers, you know, who performed with King Sunny Ade and Lauryn Hill and the Fugees and so forth, the Kaleta and Super Yamba Band is Afro-funk at its finest, with really heavy, intricate, syncopated rhythms and super bright brass over top. It just, to me, it just warms the soul. It makes you want to dance. Now, there are a couple guys, the Detrani brothers, and they actually, at one point, did a side project with our local favorites, the Blind Owl Band, called the Bone Orchard Butchers. They're really kind of eclectic Balkan-style music, kind of like the gypsy jazz and some swing influence in there. And also, there's a band, Richie and Rosie. Rose is now our first musician who has performed twice at Northern Current. She performed last year with Rose and the Bros. I remember when they arrived, I was so surprised to see that she was touring with an infant, that, you know, she was a new mother, and talk about commitment. Not only touring dozens and dozens of dates, but to do so with a papoose. It's pretty amazing. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what this new project looks like for her.
I've got a problem I can't solve. Now I don't mean to worry you, but here I am facing something new, and I need help that only comes from you. It's me again, Lord. Yes, I need help that only comes from you. It's me again, Lord.
Honey, child, come go with me back to the West Indies. Baby, can't you see I'm losing my pep and my energy?
The Soggy Po' Boys are definitely a New Orleans-influenced jazz band, kind of reminiscent of the Funky Meters, and then they also bring in some traditional Caribbean influence, sort of like New Orleans second line meets reggae and calypso. music brings people together. When I initially came to Hobo Fest, I actually started out just helping put up the tents. And now I've been putting up tents